Okay, so let's bring our attention then to the options that will be presented when the user clicks on the central action button. As you can see here, we've got 4 options that are available. Now, of course, if you're building this for your own use case, you might want to put more options available. You might want to decrease the font size, do everything that you need in order to provide more options to your users if that's what you want. So what we're going to do now is we're going to focus on building this particular section, which will be invoked then by pressing the action button. So let's get cracking, let's get into it. Okay, so within the navigation component, I've just collapsed all the widgets here in the widget tree. We now want to put a container just underneath the actual stack. So just press the little plus here. Let's add a container in. Let's just grab hold of that container, just drag that underneath the stack like that and let go. And we just now want to rename this to options container, just like that. Now what we need to do is we need to now set the affinity of the width so it stretches right across. Now with the actual height itself, we're just going to put a height of 448 in here. Now of course it depends on how many options that you actually have available for your particular use case. You can obviously increase or decrease the height of that. We just need to just put the border radius on as well. Actually, if I just press the little padlock off there, we're going to give it 12 at the top left and 12 at the top right. So we've now got some sort of curves on the edges there. You can't quite see it yet. And what we also need to do, we need to position the child elements actually within inside our stack. So with the actual stack selected, we just want to set the default child alignment to the bottom. So it just brings the actual container to the bottom of the actual position of the alignment of the stack. Okay, so it just now it actually will be sitting actually underneath our actual navigation. So that's all good. That's all set up for us. I think what we can now do is we can actually focus on actually even put a little bit of animation on this now actually, because we can actually get this bit working before we actually put the actual items actually within inside. So let's go and do that now. Okay, so with the options container selected here, let's move over to the animations here. Let's now do an on trigger animation here. So just choose the add animation, and we are going to want to do a slide here for the very first animation. Now this is where it really is important actually to have the apply initial state, because what we're going to want to do is we're going to want to position the actual options container below the actual navigation. We don't want to actually see it. Okay, so let's now set some properties up. Let's go to 300 here. Now the delay remains the same. That's fine. We don't need anything to change there, but the initial position is going to be 0, 0, and then of course our final position here is going to be the vertical position is going to be 4, 5, 8, which is going to be super important. Now of course we're going to want to now, if I just preview that, you can see now that that is just sliding up quite nicely. Of course, it's pretty basic. It's pretty boring. It's just literally just kind of going straight to the top here. So we're gonna now want to add it in another animation. So just choose add animation here. And this time it's going to be another slide animation, but the duration of this is only going to be 100. So just choose that, but the delay is going to be 300. So we're going to kind of wait for this animation here to actually play out. And then we're then going to start this particular animation, which is only going to run for 100 milliseconds. Now this is going to be that little adjustment that you kind of see, that little bounce effect that you see at the top of the container. So the initial position is going to be -10. Okay, so we're going to kind of bring this up as the initial position, and then its final resting place is going to be 0. So that's why you're going to kind of get that little bounce effect. Now if I just preview this, you can just see now that it sort of bobbles up and then drops down back to kind of 10, -10. So that is looking quite nice for us here. So everything else I think can remain the same. We don't actually need to change that. I think that's all looking good. What we now need to do is we now need to actually trigger that particular animation, and we can do that quite simply, just as we've done before. We need to trigger it by use of that kind of action button here. So let's go to the action tap container. Let's select that. Let's go to the open here. And of course, we now need to apply the widget animation in here as well. So within here, I'm now going to pop this right actually at the bottom here. So I'm just going to press the little plus here. Let's go to add action. and I'm going to just do a search for animation here. Of course, I could have just copied and pasted it, but just choose widget animation. Let's now choose that animation. So there's the options container just here. And of course, we are going to start the animation. Now this is we're going to keep this toggle off as non-blocking, but actually we're going to want to change the one above it now to actually be non-blocking itself actually. So this, with all of these being non-blocking, means that all of these are all going to play out at the same time. Again, the last one is going to kind of wait until the animation has actually completed before it moves on to the component state. So what I can do is I can just quite simply just go here, copy the action, go to plus here, let's paste the action in here. Now we can just simply reverse the animation just here, and everything there for remains there. I just need to go up here, and I just need to turn this non-blocking on here, and of course we've got it there as well. So that is pretty good. So I think actually if we can probably go to test mode now, we can quickly now see if that options panel displays and animates just as we need it to. So let's go and do that now. Okay, so here we are in run mode. Let's hit the option here. There it goes, it's displayed. Oh, okay, looks like we've got a bit of a bouncy problem going on here. So I've clearly made a mistake actually, probably in the actual action flow editor. So let's have a look here. What have we got going on? So yeah, yes, I can see the problem. Okay, so what I've gone and done is I've gone in, selected kind of reverse animation here, and I've not selected it actually here. So it looks like, yeah, it was all very, very inconsistent. So you probably spotted that actually when I was actually going through it. So well done if you actually spotted that as a mistake. Let's go back to test mode. Let's do a reload. I guess it is okay to make mistakes, I guess. There is a lot going on in these particular videos, obviously, as we walk through step by step. So that's all part of the process. Okay, taking a while to reload. Come on. Okay, there we go. Let's hit this now. Let's see what happens. Up it comes. And then it goes down again. Excellent. Okay, well, we've created that problem, which is fantastic. So brilliant. Let's now move on to the next bit. Okay then, so our options container is not complete without some options within inside it. So let's do that now. Let's create a brand new component, because we're going to obviously want this to be reusable, because we're going to put this in 4 times in this particular example. Let's hit the little plus with the diamond. So this is going to create a brand new component. So I'm going to call this one navigation option component, just like that. Choose create component. So of course this is where we're now just gonna sort of size this up a little bit. Okay, so the first thing we're going to do, let's add a column in. Let's rename the column, and this is going to be an options column, and let's put a little plus here as well. We now need to add in a container, so we're going to call this one options container, just like that. Let's set the width now. Let's move over to the full infinity, and with the height 80. There we go. And the fill color, we're just going to remove that. Actually, we don't need a fill color on here, because we're going to use the fill color from the actual container inside the navigation component. Now with the options container here, we now need to add our additional widgets in. So let's first add in a row, because we're going to want to position everything in a row itself. Just going to double click and call this options row, just like that. And then hit the little plus here. Let's now put in another little container. Call this one symbol container, something like that. Can't seem to type now. There we go. Let's set the properties of the symbol container. So this is going to be circular. It's going to have a diameter of 38. The primary color is going to be the kind of the primary we've got here. There we go. That is good. And then within inside that actual symbol container, we now need to put an icon. So just select the plus here, do a search for icon, just select that. Now, one thing we're going to do here, we're going to set the opacity to be 0.7. It's going to be kind of sort of slightly faded out. Of course, we're going to pass in the icon actually as a component parameter actually into this very, very shortly. We're just going to rename the icon here, symbol icon. So inside our options row, we now need to add in another column here, because this is going to contain the detail now. It's going to contain the title and the description. We're going to rename our column. So option a content column, like that. Hit the little plus here. Let's add in a text here. Let's just add in another text. I'm going to rename this particular text to option title, like that. This one's just going to be called option description. Let's sort this one out now. So firstly, let's adjust the item space in here to 12. and then let's just centrally align everything just there. And I think everything there can be over to the left hand side. That is good. So let's choose our option title here. Let's now change the text properties here. So this is going to be a title large like that. So looking great. And let's choose the option description here. Let's choose the body here, which is going to be body large. Let's change the primary text here to be the secondary text. So just got that slightly gray kind of look. So just move over to our options row. Let's give this some space in here. So the item space in here is going to be 24, and we're just going to say apply to start and end as well. So it just moves those. Everything's going to have 24. So I highly encourage whenever you're kind of positioning kind of widgets with inside columns that you utilize the actual spacing of the actual column instead of actually doing all of this padding with inside your actual text widget. So I could have quite easily gone here or gone over to padding and put like 16 or 32 padding in there, but try to utilize the actual spacing options with inside the actual columns and rows themselves. It'll make your life a lot easier along the way. So next up then, with inside the options column, let's just collapse the container down for a second. Just hit the little plus here. Let's add a divider in. Okay, so just choose divider, and we just need to set some properties on here. So on the color, we just want to change to the actual secondary text color, and then we're going to put the thickness as 0.5. What we'll also do is we'll set the opacity actually down to 0.1. So it's really, really faint, that particular division between our options. So what we now need to do with inside this particular component, we now need to set some actual component parameters. So just choose the navigation option component. So just at the top here, we're just going to go up to the component parameters, just press plus. Let's add a brand new parameter. So the first one that we're going to add in is actually a title. And so this is going to be a string. It's required. I'm going to add another parameter in. I'm just going to call this one description. And it's going to be of type string as well. It's just going to collapse those down just there. Let's add another parameter in here. So this one is going to be the actual icon itself. So go to type, move down, if I find it's right at the top here, select icon at the top here. That's also required. And finally, one more parameter we need to add in, and this is really important. And this is the on tap action. This is the kind of the callback that we now need to make with inside this particular this kind of option, because when the user actually taps on the actual background here on the actual container itself, we're going to want to kind of call back to the parent component, okay, that actually has this, which is our navigation component. So just choose that, and this is going to be of type action. There we go, and that is required as well. So just hit confirm, and they are now all added. So now we need to bind our actual kind of our text and our description, our icons, to the actual component parameters. So let's just choose option title. Let's move up here to where it says the text selector, and we can choose the title there, choose the description, choose a selector, go to description. There we go. Let's go to the actual symbol icon. Let's just choose the icon here, and we can choose the icon that we actually pass in as well. So they're all selected. So finally then, we just need to go to the options column here. Let's go up to the actions. Let's go to the action flow editor. Let's add an action in, and let's just execute this callback. Okay, so choose execute callback, choose the callback to be the on tap action, and that's all that we need to do. So that's pretty well much our component simply created. We might need to go back in here and make some tweaks very shortly, but pretty well much that's what we need right at this moment. So we can now go back to the actual navigation component and start dropping these actually into the options container. Let's go and do that now. Okay, so here we are then back in the navigation component, and we now need to add our options. The first thing I'm going to do, I'm just going to move our component into the components folder there to keep it nice and tidy. And we need to now go to the options container. This is going to be our home for the next widget, which is going to be a column. So just hit the little plus here, choose column, and let's give our column a name. So I'm going to call this options column, just like that. Hit enter. Now let's hit the little plus here, click on the little diamond, and then scroll down here, and you can see here we've got this navigation option components. We're just going to select that, and I'm just going to right click here. I'm going to duplicate this, so I'm just going to create 4 of these. hit duplicate there, and you can see them all are nicely positioned. Okay, we've got a little bit of a spacing issue, but we'll come back and sort that very, very shortly. So obviously each of these components have now got component parameters. You can see those here down on the right hand side. What I'm going to do here is I'm just going to go and fill all of these in, okay, just to save a little bit of time in this video, and I'll come back and I'll let you know what I've actually set up. Okay, so our navigation option parameters have all been set. You can see here I've just kind of keyed in some titles, some descriptions. I selected an icon. I haven't put anything in the on tap action at the moment. We'll come back and do that real shortly. But pretty much that's all I've done. So that's all you need to do is just go and do whatever you need to do if you're following along with this particular sample, and you're very welcome to copy what I've got here. Let's now sort out that little problem that we got here with the spacing. So you can see here that actually what I've got here is I've got the expansion that's currently set to kind of use the sort of the available space here. We want to remove the expanded option, so just choose this option here to actually make the actual widget not fill the actual space, and you can see here that brings it nicely in. We also need to do that across all of these, so if we can quickly do that, you can see now that it's just collapsing up and things are looking a little bit more in keeping with our design. So there we go. So things are looking good. Let's now move on to the next bit. Okay, so we've got all our options now in place. We now need to handle the situation of actually selecting those options. So how is it going to actually work inside this component? Because chances are within your own use case, you're going to want to determine that a user has actually clicked on one of those options from one of your main pages. So for example, in the charts page or the wallets page, we're going to want to do something on those pages now, depending on what option the actual user selects here. So how are we going to do that? Well, what we're going to need to do is we're going to have to create an AppState variable, and we're going to need to track which option has actually been selected, and we can then pick that up inside our parent page. So let's do that now. Let's move over to our AppState variables here. Let's create a brand new state variable, and we're just going to call this one selected option. Now I'm going to use a integer here, so I'm going to track it by number, but of course you could track it by a string, a piece of copy, anything you want to do there. We're going to keep all of these options as they are and just hit create. So that AppState variable is now created. Let's now move over to our widget tree. Let's go back into navigation component, which we already are, and we're going to go up to our component parameter. If we just choose a little edit here, we now need to add a brand new parameter. So this brand new parameter is going to be called on tap selected option, and this is going to be of type an action, which is just down the bottom here. Choose action, and we're going to keep this as required. And what this is going to allow us to do is it's going to allow us to execute this particular on tap selected option once the user has actually selected each of these. So inside each of these, we're going to set that AppState variable to say, right, I have selected option 1. And all that callback is going to do is it's going to return back to the parent page to say, right, a user has actually selected that option. Now, what would you like me to go and do? So let's now do that now. Let's now start hooking up the actual selection here across our navigation option components. Okay, so within our navigation component, let's choose the first navigation option component. Now, if you remember when we set the parameters up for this component, we created this one called on tap action. So what we need to do is we need to click the little open here so we can bring up the action flow editor. Now, this is the callback that's going to happen inside the actual component. It's going to call back to this particular action, and we're going to carry out a number of steps here. The first one that we're going to do is we're going to set that AppState variable to say, right, I have now selected option 1. So just go to add action. Let's type in the word state here. Let's update the app state. We're going to set the field, and we're going to set this selected option here. So just choose that, and we're going to set this to a value, and we're just going to say 1. As simple as that. So what we also need to do is we also need to set another variable here, because we need to now say that the options have now been selected, so which will now force that actual animation of our options to actually collapse. Okay, and the way that we do that is we just simply do a little plus here. We say add action, and we're going to type in state again, and we're going to say it's a component state variable. We'll set the field, and we're going to say is options, and of course we're now going to set this now to a false. So it's already selected there false. That's all that we need to do. So next up, what we need to do is we now need to reverse all of our animations. There's no real kind of simple way of doing this in a centralized place within inside FlutterFlow at the time of recording. So what we're going to have to do is we're going to have to create a number of further actions to now actually reverse those animations. So what I'm going to do now is I'm just going to add all of those in, and then I'll walk through once I've actually done that. Okay, so I've now completed all of this now, and you can see here that I've also put the labels in here just to help this particular video while you're looking at it. So you can see here that I've got the AppState there set, obviously, and then here's my widget animation here. So what I've done is I've just simply selected the widget that I'm interested in and selected reverse and select the non-blocking. So I just need to do non-blockings for our right option, as you can see here, our column, and then obviously our action button, our left icon there, and our right icon and our close icon. And of course, as we get down to the last one, which is the options container, of course I'm going to turn the non-blocking off. I now want this to kind of just pause a little bit, wait for the actual options to then actually close, and then of course I can then set the isOptions component state variable to false. So this pretty well much handles all of our animations that we need to get ourselves back into a nice reset state once one of those options has been selected. There's one more thing that we need to do. We now need to execute that callback. Okay, this is the actual navigation component callback. This is what we're then going to hook onto in just a moment on one of the main pages, where we can say, right, that option has now been selected. So where it says plus here, just choose that. Of course, choose add action, type in the execute here, execute callback, and we're just going to choose that new callback that we created just a moment ago called on tap selected option. So that's pretty well much all that we need to do. Now, if I just close that, so we are in a good position now, but of course, we're not finished at this moment, because where we now can't have a common location for all of these animations, what we now need to do is we now need to go back into the action flow. We need to copy the whole of that action chain, and we're going to need to paste it actually into here. So let's just quickly do that. Let's go to the down here to the action flow editor. Let's go here. Let's copy the action chain. Close that down. Let's go into the second one here. Let's go back down to the on tap action here. Let's now paste that action in there and just hit paste. And we just need to change the first one here. So we're just going to change this to a 2 here and close. And now what I'm going to do is I'm just going to go through these two here, and I'm just going to do exactly the same thing. Just paste them in. Just say paste. Go up here. Choose this to be number 3. And I'm going to quickly go on and now do number 4. And if you really want to see me do it and say skipping it, let's just paste it in here and just paste it. There it is. And we just simply need to set this to 4. So we've now kind of distinctively set now each of the actions that we've got in here. Now, of course, if you have more options in your particular use case, and of course you would then have 5, 6 or whatever you would like. So that's good. Everything's now set. Now, of course, now how do we actually now hook onto each of these actual options inside our main pages? So let's now go over and do that now. Okay, so we're back on our charts page here. Let's choose the navigation component. And if you recall here, we've got this on tap selected option, of course. So this is what's going to be invoked whenever we press one of these inside our actual component. Let's hit on the open. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to add an action here just to prove that this is actually working. So let's just do a little alert information dialog here. Just choose information dialog, put a title, and I'm going to put selected option here. And the message, just choose the selector, go to the AppState variable there and choose the selected option and just hit confirm. So that's it. That's all that we need to do there. And of course I can then actually take that. Let's just actually copy this actually, because we're also going to go to our wallet page, and I'm just going to go back to the navigation component. I'm just going to set that there. So just choose that. Let's just paste the action in there as well, so we can see it happen on both pages. So let's now fire this up into test mode and let's see if this all works. Okay, so here we are then in run mode. Let's press our central button here. We've got our options up there, which looks great. Let's hit the buy option. Excellent. So there it is. Selected option equals 1, which is fantastic. And I can hit OK. And of course, if I just now choose maybe the deposit one, it should say 3. There it is. Excellent. And of course, if I just move to our wallet page here, choose this, I can obviously then carry out something very similar as well, option number 3. So that's all looking pretty good. So one thing you might have spotted, that when you actually click on this central option here and you actually then choose one here, there is a subtle delay before that actual option is getting actually displayed. So one little tweak you can do in order to solve that particular problem, if this is what you would like to do, is if you go back over to the options navbar here, let's go to the first one here. You're going to need to apply this to all of these, but let's go back to the on tap action here. Now let's move down here. We find that last widget animation. You'll see that obviously we've got this selection where we've got the non-block blocking off. So we're going to wait for that animation to complete before it progresses. But if I now toggle this now to be on, so it is non-blocking, just close that, go back to test mode. Let's just do an instant reload. If I now select the central options, choose the by, and then instantly the option is then displayed. So that's just one little tweak that you can put into your application if you just want that response time just to be sort of a little bit more faster for your users. Okay, so I think we're almost coming to the end now of actually creating this navigation component with the options. Just some extended ideas that you've got here that you can actually implement here. Of course, you can have many more options actually in here. So you can put at least another 2 in there on the left-hand side and 2 on the right. So if you need more options available to you. One other little tweak that you can actually make to this particular application is that you can obviously then when you actually pass in your actual selected page index actually into your actual component, you can obviously change out these particular options. So depending again on your use case, you can kind of make a decision over whether you show these kind of options here or take certain ones off. Of course, you're going to need to put some additional logic inside your navigation component to support that, and it's normally inside this sort of options column. So what you could do is you could actually create many different option columns and of course show and hide them depending on kind of your selected page index. So you could have maybe 4 here if it's selected page index 1. If it's selected page index 2, you might just want to show 2 different options, but you obviously need to then cater as well for the actual options container and the size that will be, the actual height. So you might need to reduce that height dynamically depending on how many options you have available. And if you have more options than the 4 that we got here and you need to extend the height, then you need to extend the actual change the options container here, increase the height of 448. But one thing you need to make sure you also do though, inside your animations, you need to make sure that you adjust these particular heights. So if you're doing, say for example, if you set your container here, your options container as say, I don't know, 500 pixels, then this would need to be 508, because of course you're going to reduce down here 10 in order to give you that little bounce effect. Okay, so you're always going to be 10 pixels higher here on this particular height depending on what your options container is. So there is a couple of different options that you've got available to you. I hope you've enjoyed this particular video and the whole series actually, because it's been quite a slow burn, but hopefully you've learned a lot about how to sort of build these type of systems inside FlutterFlow. And of course, all the skills that you've actually learned here, you can take forward into your own projects because there is so much going on right at the foundation level here inside FlutterFlow. So if you like this content, please do subscribe to my channel. Really do appreciate that. And of course, please do like the video as well, because of course it gets out there to the FlutterFlow community. And yeah, until the next one, I'll see you real soon.